What is up, everyone? Welcome to Optimus Fantasy. We are here for day 2 of our 2025 Draft Ranking Summit. I am Nate Polvogt. Next to me is the one and only known zero RB truther, Mr. Kevin Tompkins. Kevin, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday morning ahead of the NFL schedule release?
I'm good. Look, when we talk about these rankings, we are literally updating. We updated these rankings before the show, before going live. That was probably 45 seconds ago. So,
Was it even that long ago?
actually, so we've been
Eh.
apparently on for a minute and 12. So probably a minute and 30 ago, 90 seconds. But still, when you're doing it in seconds, that's what we're doing here. Like, we are updating our of everything. We've got fresh rankings, hot up the oven. Got the cookie tray out ready for you. We're ready to talk for however long it takes to talk about our top 60 wide receivers.
That's right, man. Top 60. And seriously, like right up until the moment I hit go live here on the little button in StreamYard, we're hitting publish on our rankings. We've got Jamie Parag, Kevin in the chat saying, Nate and Kevin, what's up, guys? Jamie, thanks for tuning in. We've missed seeing you around. We haven't been live as much, but that's going to change here. I want to remind everyone of our partner, fastdraft.app. Go over there, get some best ball drafting in. They've got fantastic formats. Code Optimus will get you a $50 deposit match. And while you're at it, head over to Sunday Dreamers Club and get yourself some fantasy football merch from our friend Casey Kasem.
Yep.
And with that, Kevin, let's get to the rankings.
Do we want to just dive in? Because we had a little preamble about the wide receivers, and let's kind of do the opposite, where we talked about the health of the running back position yesterday. We didn't have that as much with some of the wide receivers. Rashid Rice went down, Puka went down in the beginning of the season, ended up coming back. Obviously, Cooper Kupp was hurt as well. But yeah, plenty of injuries at the wide receiver position that affected a lot of things with how we think about the wide receiver position. And in drafts early so far this season, we're seeing the running backs come up a bit. As I said yesterday, what has always been will not always be. Not every season is its own ecosystem, and we've seen Josh Hermsmeyer did a big study a little while ago about running back injuries. They are roughly 380% more likely to suffer a 4+ week injury than a wide receiver is in the top 24 of ADP. This is going back multiple years back into the 2010s. So a lot of, variables that go on with the health, but we saw good running back health, bad wide receiver health, just to generalize. We could see that kind of normalize this year, just based on what we've seen. But yeah, the wide receiver position, top heavy as usual, will outscore the running backs by and large, unless we get that super legendary running back season.
Yeah, and I love what we've seen out of the wide receiver position recently. Guys like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, who are just so commanding. But then you've got T. Higgins in Cincinnati, who, what do you do with him? Because he's so talented. He's a wide receiver one anywhere else in the league.
Yep.
He's locked into Cincinnati. What's going on in Kansas City? You mentioned last season, but he's back now. What do you do about Xavier Worthy? Marquise Brown is in the mix there. We don't know what's going to happen with him. He was hurt for the majority of last season. And then that carries on to, do these things affect quarterback production? If we have a healthy Rashee Rice, a healthy Marquise Brown, does that change how we look at Patrick Mahomes? So as we're talking about these rankings, I think it's a multifaceted thing where, yes, it affects how you look at wide receivers. But if we've got some of these guys on Kansas City higher and we think they're going to be productive, that should mean that there's a bump in Patrick Mahomes' value as well. So things to think about as we're talking through a lot of this stuff. Kevin, I want to hear your first two. Let's get to the players.
I mean, it shouldn't be any surprise. A couple of LSU wide receivers here. I would say Jamar Chase is in one of the most fantasy fruitful situations. And now, he just got paid. T. Higgins got paid. Mike Gesicki got paid. Joe Burrow is happy. The Bengals have been a top 3 pass rate over expected offense the last 3 seasons. Nothing changes. It's status quo with the Bengals. The passing attack will drive the ship, and Jamar Chase, people have said, he's had good seasons, but he hasn't put everything together like he did last season to just dominate from wire to wire and be the wide receiver one. We're talking about ranges of outcomes. Like, sure, Jamar Chase could finish as like wide receiver 6, and he's still going to win you your league. And that's, maybe that's like a slight negative EV kind of thing if you're drafting him 101 overall, but we're really splitting hairs on a lot of these wide receivers. Justin Jefferson obviously has the 101. He's been the top wide receiver before, probably planet Earth's number one wide receiver. If you needed to, fight off aliens with one wide receiver in the NFL, I would say if you pulled 100 people, Steve Harvey did that on Family Feud. Justin Jefferson is probably number one.
Yeah, I would agree. I've got Jamar Chase number 1, Justin Jefferson number 2 as well here. For me, it comes down to the only thing that splits them apart is situation. I think that Jamar Chase is going to see more volume than Justin Jefferson because we've got J.J. McCarthy at quarterback. This is really the only thing that differentiates them for me is quarterback. I'll get into my 3 and 4 since we agree on 1 and 2. I've got Puka Nacua as my number 3, and then I've got CeeDee Lamb as my number 4. Speaking of recent changes, I updated it this morning. I had Amon-Ra at number 4. CeeDee Lamb, though, the addition of George Pickens changes the way I look at CeeDee Lamb. He's not a standalone asset in that receiving room anymore. He actually has parts and pieces that are going to draw attention away from him. They have to respect George Pickens now. Jake Ferguson wasn't going to scare anybody. Useful piece in an offense, yes, and we'll talk about him tomorrow. But for me, it just bumps CeeDee Lamb a little bit because now teams cannot hyper-focus on him. Jalen Tolbert and Brandon Cooks were supposed to scare defenses last year. No. And you look at this backfield too, and they just really didn't do much. We're talking way too much about Jaden Blue yesterday. I think for me, CeeDee Lamb just getting Pickens into that receiving room just bumped him for me just a little bit. And Puka's Puka, right? And now with no Cooper Kupp, he is the wide receiver 1, if he wasn't last year already with Kupp there. And I think the addition of Davante Adams to this offense is helpful for Nacua because, again, defenses can't hyper-focus on Nacua.
Yeah, Puka is just absolutely maniacal in terms of like yards per route run. He's put up 2 of the most efficient seasons in wide receivers, like wide receiver history. And it hasn't even been like Nico Collins has been like the one guy that's like approached him. We had a Brandon Cooks 3 yards per route run season last year, but yeah, in 11 games, 3.56 yards per route run. That's like the thing about Puka is that we really should have seen this coming with the efficiency because he was so efficient at well, not as much as Washington, but certainly at BYU. That was probably like the one red flag in like analysts, like that's like the hole in the game where we should have seen this coming and we didn't. And we were kind of a little late to the party. We heard he was having breakfast with Matthew Stafford. So that kind of should have been like, all right, like prepare for takeoff. Yeah. But Puka Nacua and Davante Adams, this offense is going to be incredibly condensed. Sean McVay is if I trust anybody in an offense to scheme somebody open, it's going to be Sean McVay. Yeah. So Sean McVay with Puka Nacua and Davante Adams, you get Tyler Higbee back, which, you don't think about what he can offer an offense as far as someone that's like dependable because they were trying to roll out Tyler Johnson and Jordan Whittington. I mean, they've had Tutu Atwell. They'll have him again this year. But yeah, that was a little bit of a question mark with Cooper Kupp aging plus Puka Nacua. And Puka Nacua still put up a massive season. As for CeeDee Lamb, yeah, George Pickens is absolutely going to help that offense in terms of taking defensive attention away from him. Different skill sets. It's going to allow CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb has always been a slot player when you go to 3 wide receiver sets. Nothing changes there. George Pickens is going to be on the outside as like the kind of X receiver a little bit too. But CeeDee Lamb's going to be able to play flanker in 2 wide receiver sets. That's going to help him stay off the line, get wide open. just absolutely gobble up targets from Dak Prescott. Hopefully he stays healthy. So absolutely love that there. I mean, like I said, with all these wide receivers really splitting hairs with like certain situations. My number 3, we have not mentioned him, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think that, Ben Johnson leaving is really going to change the trajectory of this offense with all the veterans there, with the pieces, with the offensive line. They added Isaac Tesla. We'll see if he's like a Tim Patrick replacement or if it's going to be still Tim Patrick. But between him, the ascending Jameson Williams, this offense is still in good hands with Jared Goff and Dan Campbell. So I have no problems here as far as Amon-Ra St. Brown being the slot guy that absolutely gobbles up targets. I literally just said that with CeeDee Lamb. And that's kind of the same thing there where he's got someone to play off of. A much better tight end in Sam Laporta, certainly much better, and not having as strong of a defense in Detroit. I know they, devoted some draft assets to the defensive part of the field, but, I think that might help the offense just a little bit more in staying on the field, being able to do a lot more. And then my 4th is CeeDee Lamb for all the reasons that we talked about before.
Yeah, no, I get it. So this transition is perfect. Number 5 for me is Amon-Ra St. Brown. For all the reasons you stated. I mean, he's a top tier wide receiver, and this will really round out my tier 1 of wide receivers with Amon-Ra. He's just in such a good situation, Kevin. Like you can't really get around that. This Detroit offense is good. This team is good. They are in the hunt this season and every season when they have Dan Campbell and they've got Jared Goff, and with this offense. And like we talked about yesterday with these running backs, like these guys just play well and they play hard for Dan Campbell. So Amon-Ra for me, I mean, again, like you said, it's splitting hairs here with these top 5 for the most part, or these 3, 4, 5, I guess it's more of a splitting hairs. But
in my 5 is Puka Nacua. So that's, we have the same top 5, just jumbled up the 3, 4, 5. Well, the 3 and 5, we have Puka and Amon-Ra flipped.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is about as close as you can get through our first 5. It's going to get weird, folks. I promise. It's going to get real weird.
It's going to get very weird. Trust me.
Yeah, so we'll start. I'll go with my number 6 here. I've got Malik Neighbors in New York. I'd have him higher if he had a better situation, honestly. I hope to have him in my top 3 receivers next season because I hope that means that they actually did something. And we agree here. You can't argue with the volume he's going to get. It's him and Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe Theo Johnson, maybe Darius Slayton. I don't know. Is Isaiah Hodgins back there? Who knows?
I mean, they brought in like about 1 million undrafted free agents there. But look, Malik Neighbors, I want to put him in that top tier. Like I so badly want to put him in that top tier, but everything around him, kind of gives me some pause. Like if we knew it was Jameis Winston at quarterback instead of whether it's Jackson Dart or Russell Wilson, like if they had given Jameis a shot, like we were all like partying in the streets when he got signed. We thought it was going to be like Malik Neighbors, like 220 targets, 170 catches, maybe not that, but still, we were dancing in the streets. We wanted Malik Neighbors to be like the far and away wide receiver 1 with Jameis Winston, knowing what he can do for a wide receiver and for a passing game in general, because that would obviously trickle down to Wan'Dale Robinson, possibly Theo Johnson as well. But, with the quarterback situation, the one thing that I do actually like for Malik Neighbors is that the entire coaching staff, they are playing for their jobs in the first like 6-7 weeks. So that might lead them to, use your best players to just actually try, so whether, and unfortunately the byproduct of trying is it's probably going to be Russell Wilson starting the first few games.
Yeah.
So, that doesn't help things there, but you got to take some of the good with some of the bad. Malik Neighbors is still fantastic, and look what he did, with Tommy DeVito and Daniel Jones and, Tim Boyle and, just the dreck they rolled out. So despite that, I do, think Malik Neighbors has he has a Chase Jefferson ceiling, and it's not because he went to LSU. Yep. So, I mean, God, what's in the water down there in the bayou?
I know. We're going to have another LSU receiver coming up, but my number 7 is not an LSU receiver. It's Nico Collins. Again, just what this comes down to is we know the talent, and who else is CJ Stroud going to throw to, man? Dalton Schultz. He's got Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, which are nice pieces. I like their additions, but they're rookies, and they're going to take time to ease in, and they're not like first or second round rookies either. So I just think this is a volume thing for me. He's going to get enough volume this season to be a wide receiver 7 or higher.
Yep, and I've got Nico exactly there at wide receiver 7. Look, we're pretty chalk here, but yeah, Nico is the next coming of Julio Jones, or I should say, like the current coming of Julio Jones. Like, he is just an absolute freak of nature no matter what he does. He's got CJ Stroud, and whether that's actually worth something now in year 3, we'll see. But yeah, they added a couple of wide receivers. They've added Christian Kirk. Tank Dell, obviously, we have no real update. More than likely out for the entire season. So that's going to stink for him. Their depth last year at wide receiver was just terrible. Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie, Robert Woods, like it was just absolutely horrible. So bringing a bunch of wide receivers in, like I'm glad they certainly did that and addressed that. I think they added like Braxton Berrios as well, which, I know that doesn't like jump off the page, but when you're trying to get like overall wide receiver depth, like that's not bad. Justin Watson as well. Look,
Christian Kirk.
I think I mentioned him too, but yeah, just some of like like they were running out like dudes like Jared Wayne and like
it was bad.
Like guys, future XFL bench warmers. That's what they were rolling out. But yeah, like Nico Collins is awesome, incredibly efficient. I think we all kind of jumped the shark. I include myself in that, with kind of discounting Nico Collins because of what he did at the end of 2023, when he was pretty much by himself in the offense. We wanted to give a lot of that credit to, Tank Dell, that he was such a value as the third wide receiver being taken in that offense. And really a lot of credit to CJ Stroud. I think PFF Bobby Slowick, really kind of screwed the pooch there with this entire offense and wanting to bell cow Joe Mixon so much. And almost the passing game was an afterthought outside of Nico Collins.
Well, and I don't think that's going to be the case this year.
No, I don't either.
I just can't see it. Who's your number 8, Kevin?
Number 8 is that aforementioned LSU wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr.
I
mean, look, anytime that you can come in, he was one of the most overlooked the rookie wide receivers last season, and we really shouldn't have, because he was probably the best value out of all of them and had a pretty clear pathway to doing what he did last year, and he absolutely did it. He's DK Metcalf, but if he actually tried, that is my comp to Brian Thomas Jr., and he fulfilled that and then some. Now this offense is clearly his in terms of number 1 with a bullet in the pecking order. The team got rid of Gabe Davis, so right now it is just a bunch of guys and Brian Thomas Jr. Like De'Ami Brown is fine. I think Travis Hunter is more of a we have to see with Travis Hunter, because that's going to be the huge variable and everything, whether he can be like a true running mate at the outset for Brian Thomas, or if he's going to be a 40-50% routes guy and then get ramped up. Like, we don't know that quite yet. But like as it stands right now, you're probably going to see a lot more Parker Washington than we want to. We're all going to be wanting our Travis Hunters, and we're going to get our vegetables. We're going to get our broccoli. That is Parker Washington. But healthy Trevor Lawrence is going to help out a lot in this offense. Like Trevor Lawrence is on the precipitous path to being Derek Carr. And there's nothing wrong with being Derek Carr, but when you're the first overall pick in 2021, you have some high hopes and you have some high expectations there. And you don't want your quarterback 1 to be like the 14th best quarterback in football. You want him to be there with Mahomes and Burrow and Lamar and Josh Allen. So this season, knowing that they have their top guy, they have a guy that they drafted, that they traded up for 2nd overall Liam Cohen, who we know can coordinate an offense. Like, this is going to be make or break for Trevor Lawrence, and I do think that trickles down certainly to Brian Thomas, where we can see him meet or exceed what he did last year, and that's going to be great for everybody.
So my number 8 is Brian Thomas Jr. as well. And wow, I love what you said.
Where do you get your ideas?
I don't know, Kevin. I don't know. So, I like what you said at the end there, because that's why I have him here. Well, I love the talent. I love Brian Thomas Jr., and I was puppeting it or parroting it before the draft. I thought that he was probably one of the 2 best receivers in this draft. I had him ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. for sure, and he was right there with Malik Neighbors. This isn't put up or shut up year for Trevor Lawrence. He's got to do it. He's got to do it. If he can't do it with Brian Thomas Jr., then he can't do it. So he's just going to see a ton of volume. I don't love what they have around him in this offense. Like you said with Travis Hunter, I feel like there's going to be a massive ramp-up situation. Otherwise, we're looking at Parker Washington and De'Ami Brown are there going to be the other options. And you've got Brenton Strange. It's going to be interesting to see how this offense operates. But however Trevor Lawrence does, I still think Brian Thomas is a high-volume guy. And, 8 might be his floor if Trevor Lawrence plays well.
Yeah, 2.45 yards per out run last season as a rookie, by the way. 25% target share, almost 8 targets a game. Everything you want. I think he was top 5 in yak for wide receivers as well. So he can catch. He can do everything after the catch that you want. He's efficient. He's a top target. There's no questioning his top target status. Like, would it shock you if he finished as wide receiver 2 this year?
No. Nope.
Yeah.
Finished wide receiver 1.
Yep. I think that he's a squint and you can see it. Wide receiver 1. I think there's certainly paths to that. I just don't know if it's as consistent to where, like, you have to have the consistency
sure
on a team level versus, like, you can just rack up targets, in garbage time. That's fine. But I just don't know if he can do it on a team level with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because let's face it, what are the Jaguars in terms of like a team right now? They're a 6 to 8 win team at best.
At best, they're an 8-win team at best.
They're going to have to be plucky. Yeah, they're going to have to be plucky. They're going to have to get good fortune and health. They're going to have a full season of Trevor Lawrence. Otherwise, you're looking at Nick Mullins is, as your backup quarterback. That at least hope springs eternal. Far better backup quarterbacks that we love in fantasy is Nick Mullins. Look, Nick Mullins supported Justin Jefferson after the Pasternaut debacle that was Josh Dobbs in Minnesota.
Mullins was startable in 2 QB leagues in those games. He generally is. If you're in a pinch, you can grab Mullins if he's starting.
Yeah, he was startable in San Francisco too.
Yeah. Okay, I feel like this is where we're going to start to get weird, but we'll see here. Who's your number 9, Kevin?
It is the grown-ass man, A.J. Brown.
All right, it's not getting weird. Number 9's my A.J. Brown as well.
Okay. Look, grown-ass man, A.J. Brown. Efficient offense. I think the Eagles are going to pass a little bit more this year. And we talked about it yesterday. When you go from like 480 pass attempts to 530, that's a meaningful bump for every pass catcher involved there. So, do I think the Eagles are going to still run the ball as like the base part of their offense? Absolutely. It's going to be Jalen Hurts. It's going to be Saquon Barkley. But I also do think that, another thing too that could help Brown even more is that Dallas Goedert is on the trade block. I don't think he gets dealt. I thought if he was going to get traded, it would have been before the draft, but there's always that chance. We always see like 1 or 2 stragglers get traded in the offseason, like while we're all asleep here from May till, the middle of July when training camp starts. But so that would have led me to believe the Eagles are going to draft a tight end. That's the thing. But maybe they like, Greg Calcaterra. Who knows? But yeah, A.J. Brown, efficient offense, condensed offense with Devonta Smith. Like, what's not to like? He's A.J.
Brown.
He's always been a beast after the catch. What's not to like?
Yeah, and that's where I'm at with it too. He's one of those players like some of those running backs we talked about yesterday where I can't have him outside my top 10. I can't have him that high up in my top 10, but I can't have him outside of my top 10 because it's A.J. Brown with the Eagles coming off of a Super Bowl win. The man's a beast.
He has had 6 straight seasons going back to his rookie season in 2019 of 2.5 yards per route run or better. All 6 seasons, including last season's 3 on the dot, 3 yards per route run.
Grown ass man. Let's round out our top 10, Kevin. Mine is Drake London at number 10. I have medium hopes, medium to like medium high hopes for Michael Penix, I suppose, in this offense. Depth isn't great at wide receiver. I just think Drake London walks into a lot of volume. And that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah, like I like Drake London as well. He is my number 10, and we are absolutely, chalking it up here. We are 1s and 2s in the final 4 with our top 10 wide receivers. But yeah, like Drake London has been, he's weathered the Arthur Smith storm. He has weathered the Desmond Ridder hailstorm. He's been efficient. Last season, obviously his best season, 100 catches, 1,271 yards, 2.32 yards per route run. Even in those seasons where, the volume wasn't quite there. I mean, in the Arthur Smith years, 72 and 866, 69 and 905, like just barely over 100 targets in each season. Like he's been good, like on an efficiency standpoint. It's just the passing volume did not allow it. And now he got it. And now he's clearly leveled up. 9 touchdowns as well, which is, really good to see though, too. Atlanta scored quite a bit more. So, I think he's on the ascension. I don't know if he has top 3 consistent upside going forward. I don't know if he can get there, but there is nothing wrong with being a consistent top 8 wide receiver for like your entire prime. He's only 20. He's gonna be 24 this season. So, we could possibly say his best years are ahead of him if Penix is what they draft him to be. You gotta like that.
Yep. I mean, Drake London, for me, he's the George Pickens of Garrett Wilson's. That's the best way I can put it. A guy he just hasn't had good quarterback play. And I think once he gets it, he can be significantly better. Garrett Wilson's already been good with crappy quarterback play. So, yeah, I mean, Drake London at 10, doesn't bother me, obviously. I think that's a fair fit. I think that's the median range.
Yeah. Who's your wide receiver 11?
Ladd McConkey.
Okay.
He's the wide receiver 1 for Justin Herbert. Nothing they did in the draft changes that. Quentin Johnston doesn't change that. Quinshon Judkins doesn't change that. He's destined to have a ton of volume. We saw what he was capable of doing last season. I'd be surprised if he doesn't actually finish in the top 10, but for right now, I have to slot him at 11 because I want to see more about what this offense is going to be. I want to see him get through OTAs in camp, see if maybe they do decide to lean on Johnson a little bit more, if they go after the tight end position a little bit more. But for now, I think sitting him inside the top 12, I think is a good fit for McConkey.
Yeah, he had a 70% slot rate last season and still had a 10-yard ADOT. Like they clearly love him. They put him out at flanker quite a bit too. And them drafting Trey Harris and whoever else they put as whether it's Mike Williams as the sacrificial X or Quentin Johnston. Yeah. So that's going to only help Ladd McConkey get open. Like that dude should never play on the line, nor will he have to. It's really just some of the passing volume, but they opened up the passing last season because they had Ladd McConkey. I think that was once you have a guy like that, you can't keep him in the mothballs. Like you have to utilize him. And I think they saw, all right, we've got like a potential superstar on our hands, a potential Cooper Kupp, if you will, that, just gets open, is taught, we saw him in that playoff game. What do you have, bruised ribs or something like that?
Yeah.
The dude was just taking hits left and right and still holding on to the ball. Like that might have been his like national coming out party. Cause like you look at a team like the LA Chargers, obviously they're like second fiddle behind the Rams in their own city. We don't see a lot of them like as far as like across the country, we don't get very many like national Chargers games. Right. So like I think Ladd McConkey kind of goes, under the radar a bit, but still efficient 2.38 yards per out run, 22% targets per out run. And that's the 70% slot rate, and the fact that he still ran a 10-yard ADOT like a normal boy. Definitely helps things too. Like, usually see the slot receivers, you're in like the 6.5 to like 8 range of ADOTs, where you're pigeonholed as like Jarvis Landry, as a target guy, as like you need to survive on target volume.
Well, I mean, Ladd McConkey did that at Georgia too. He was that guy at Georgia. He got down the field out of the slot. Yeah. He's right in line with Puka last season. 124 targets each, 91 to 90 receptions, 73.4 to 72.6. They were both over 1,000 yards, 14 to 12 yards per catch. McConkey's only going to get better. So maybe I have him way too low. I don't know. Who do you have at 11, Kevin? Ooh.
Want to have some fun?
Yeah, let's have some fun.
Ooh.
All right, Herm's in the chat. You got your answer from Kevin.
Oh,
wow,
boy.
That is spicy.
I am enamored with Rashee Rice. As efficient as they come, the offense was tailored to him last year before Patrick Mahomes threw an errant pass over him, and then ended up injuring his own wide receiver by tearing his LCL, I believe it was. But yeah, on a freak injury like that, I'm willing to give some benefit of the doubt there. But the main reason why he's going lower is because of a lot of the legal issues that people do think he's going to be suspended. If you're not catching up with Drew Davenport on Twitter, I would certainly suggest doing so. Yes. He's a writer for Football Guys as well, has done a lot of work in the legal community as a lawyer, and does, have a lot of expertise in how the courts work, with his conclusion of his criminal case. It's very unlikely to resolve this season just based on how courts work, how everything gets through the system. So from what he said in his legal advice, it's very unlikely that that will run through the courts, his case this season. So more than likely, it might be a 2026 thing in terms of his suspension. So I'm operating under the fact that Rice, who is already, there's videos of him, cutting and doing all this other stuff on his knee already, evading suspension for another season. I'm operating that he's going to be a full go for week 1. And as a full go for week 1 as Patrick Mahomes' top target in an offense that is tailored for him, he was an absolute target monster last season in the few games that he ended up playing. I believe he still had a 3 yards per route run in the 4 games he played, 3.16 yards per route run. Last season, the season before, his rookie season, 2023, like he was finding it tougher to get on the field up until like week 11 or 12, but he was still massively efficient there to 2.3 yards, 2.39 yards per route run, almost 10 yards per target on each of his targets, 9.4 and 9.9 last season. Like, he is a superstar, and I don't think he gets the superstar treatment. But I'm giving it to him here, where I think he is well in league with these guys here. I am well above consensus on FantasyPros on Rashee Rice, and you can easily trick your league mates into thinking that he's going to be suspended. You can talk that up, and you can almost pull one over on your league mates, getting a Rashee Rice on your team, who has top 6 upside, and I almost feel bad putting him at 11. But yeah, this is going to be my highest riser, certainly. He still might, who knows, he might get above Drake London for all I know. But yeah, Rashee Rice is awesome.
I can see what you're saying. I've got him a lot lower. Not like crazy low or anything. We'll get to him soon, but I hear what you're saying. My only concern is the direction we saw this Kansas City offense going in last season. where they weren't as efficient. Mahomes wasn't as efficient. They still got it done. They still won games. They just did it in different ways. Nobody was just blowing up.
They're the Showtime Lakers. They are like, who cares about the regular season? You know, I know fantasy is played in the regular season, but it's almost like, who cares about the regular season? We have the playoffs to get ready for it. So we only need to like hit the gas like 70%.
Yeah, and I feel like the receiver situation in Kansas City is just too muddy for me to get this excited about Rashee Rice. I wish I could, Kevin. I really do. And I applaud you for having the balls to do it, man. Like, this is, but I know other people are just as high on him as you are. And the things that I'm considering by week 1, maybe out the window, and I might have him even as a top 5 wide receiver. If the picture there becomes more clear and we know what this Kansas City offense is going to do and we think they can get back to being what they were a few years ago, forget about it. He could be a top 5 receiver. I'm not sure that's going to happen. I'm not really.
But we know they can. But we know they can turn it on too. We know they have that in them. That's the thing. And now they have. So basically, this offense is like the Master Splinter meme, where you had Master Splinter as the adult with the 4 Ninja Turtles, and the Ninja Turtles are, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, Patrick Mahomes, and Rashee Rice. And now, well, actually, Master Splinter is Travis Kelce, actually, because now he's old and he needs everybody else to carry him. So, that's this offense right now. Look, Matt Harmon is there right there with me in the foxhole in terms of where he's got him ranked. He's close. So, am I gonna say boo about Matt Harmon? I don't think so. So that's all I've got.
All right. You're going to throw Matt Harmon in there, Mr. Reception Perception. Yeah. Maybe I'll get there, guys. But I do love to see that at least somebody's on your side. I think you might be kind of on my side with this one, maybe. I've got Jackson Smith and Jigba at number 12.
All right. My jersey behind me, literally.
Yeah, I like the direction this offense is headed. I don't know how much I believe in Sam Darnold, but that also doesn't really matter. I mean, look, he supported Justin Jefferson last season, albeit with a better offensive line. I still think JSN showed us what he can be last season. I think that just continues. He's efficient. He can get down the field.
Look, I like JSN. Don't get me wrong. There's a reason I have his jersey behind me. I am a little worried in the Seattle offense with they added Cooper Kupp, obviously Sam Darnold. They added our boy Gray Zabel, on the offensive line. But it's the offensive line that gives me worry, but not just that, but Sam Darnold. And I worry about, is JSN like a more expensive Deontay Johnson last season, where it's a guy that is going to have to survive on target volume. And that's all. I'm not saying that's that's solely why you're drafting him, because it's not, but that feels more like the play where JSN is so far ahead of Cooper Kupp and MVS and Noah Fant or Arroyo or whoever else they have at tight end. It's like the top target that you're just surviving on target volume. Like, you need that meaningful bump, up to, because what do you have for targets last year? Like 130 something? Like, I don't have right here. But
137 targets, 100 catches.
Okay, yeah. So you have to survive on like even more, like, because how efficient is this offense going to be? That's what I lean to. Like, if you get 165 targets, that's a tall ask for a wide receiver in today's NFL, even with the passing games. He
doesn't need that volume. Though. He had 137 targets, 100 catches last year. He was PPR wide receiver 9. If he can repeat what he did last season, which I believe he can do, and maybe even bump a little bit more, he's at least wide receiver 12, if not higher.
Is he going to be able to repeat that though with, not having DK Metcalf? Like, we're talking about a stark downgrade as much as we want to, talk about DK Metcalf and the end stage Tyler Lockett. I would still put those two over Cooper Kupp and MVS though.
I would put Metcalf over Kupp.
I put Metcalf. You could combine Cooper Kupp and MVS over, like, I would take Metcalf over the combined Cooper Kupp and MVS, and Lockett is just like bonus, honestly. Like, I don't think Cooper Kupp is at the stage right now. I think he's more of the Thielen type where he's going to get targets, but he's clearly not what he used to be. So, like, it sucks, and father time comes for everybody. And Cooper Kupp is home. Like, he went to Eastern Washington. He's a Washington dude. Like, great. But that's where I have some trepidation in putting JSN like any higher than like I think cat out of the bag. I think I have him at 17. But
I mean, that's not a huge disparity.
No,
really.
It's not. But he's also being drafted at like the 2-3 turn, which is that's a hefty price to pay.
I mean, I'll say this about Cooper Kupp, what you just said. He's going back home to play. I think he's going to be a little bit more of a force because I've got him ranked way down there. We'll still talk about him. He's not outside my top 60, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm not nearly as high on what he's going to be as some people are, but I'm also not nearly as low. Like I'm somewhere in the middle here, where I think he could be similar to because DK's production wasn't superior last season. It was kind of a down year for him a little bit. Well, he's hurt too. I think maybe he can get close to some of that production though in this offense with Darnold. I think they'll spread it out enough.
Like Metcalf is fine, but he's for what we expected him to be, he's been a clear disappointment in terms of his career. Like he's been fine from like putting up stats. Like he'll get you what he's basically like a low rent Mike Evans. Like he's not going to get you the touchdown equity, but he's like a lock for like 65 and 950.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right, who's your number 12, Kevin? If it's not JSN,
it's Ladd McConkey.
All right,
and I still love Ladd McConkey. Obviously we talked about him pretty much ad nauseum, so we can move on. I'll give you let me pull it up here. My 13th and 4th. I'll go 13, 14, 15 here.
I love it.
Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, and Mike Evans. Garrett Wilson, he's going to play with his college quarterback, Justin Fields. I don't think that's talked about enough. He's clearly the top target. I mean, have you seen the riches that Justin Fields gets to throw to? Garrett Wilson, the famous Alan Lazard, shout out Dave Kluge, and Josh Reynolds. Not exactly inspiring fear in opposing defenses. So Garrett Wilson, I think, is much more talented than JSN, and I think it's the same type of play. But I think Garrett Wilson can do a lot more with the target like barrage that he's going to get. So I do like that. And then I think also Justin Fields being able to move around opens things up too, because it's not just another thing that requires a safety to keep an eye on the box. That requires, any linebackers dropping to keep an eye. Maybe they're not looking over the middle at a crossing route from Garrett Wilson. That's going to help. So I do like that on that front. T. Higgins, for the reasons we talked about Jamar Chase, where at times T. Higgins has been the top receiver. Him and Chase routinely flip-flop as far as, the top receiver on the week, but Chase has like the massive upside. It's not like Higgins doesn't. He does. That dude can blow up too. And that's the beauty of this Bengals passing game where, ad nauseum, by hook or by crook, I will draft Bengals until Joe Burrow is 6 feet in the ground. Just because we know what they offer for fantasy in the passing game. So T. Higgins is like as safe as they come as far as like the team's second wide receiver. Like he's been pigeonholed with guys like Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle for the last several years, just because they've been like, these guys are different than your team's typical wide receiver twos. And Higgins is at the top of the heap, at least for me. And then Mike Evans, for the reasons we talked to Eric Henry yesterday, how we keep wanting to write that dude's obituary, and we just can't quite do it. But helping him in his later years, in his autumn years, is the fact he's got Baker Mayfield and Chris Godwin came back. They added Emeka Ibuka. They still got Jalen McMillan, Kata. Like the offensive ecosystem is fantastic where, pencil him in for 1,000 yards and hopefully you get double-digit touchdowns and like 70 catches, and you are golden.
I love that we're saying a guy who's 31 years old is in his autumn years, Kevin. What the hell does that make us? God, that's depressing.
We are in our December 31st years.
Jeez, great. Yeah. I don't differ too much here, Kevin. I've got T. Higgins at 13. I've got DJ Moore at 14, and I've got Mike Evans at 15. DJ Moore, this is the one I probably have to talk the most about here. They're a much improved offense. They added Luther Burden. They've got Rome Odunze there. They brought in Colston Loveland. They upgraded their offensive line with 3 new pieces. Caleb Williams is a year smarter. They've got Ben Johnson. What's not to like about this offense? Is it going to be DJ Moore that leads this receiving core all season? I think it will be because he's the vet and he's still got a lot of juice left in the tank. Eventually, it's going to be Burden and Odunze who we're talking about at this tier, but I think this season it's DJ Moore. He was electric last season. He played really well with Caleb Williams, and now you've added these other parts that defenses have to pay attention to. Like I always say with these receivers, the more assets you have in an offense, if they can play together, the better for these assets in fantasy because it's easier for them to get open. They're not going to be double covered. They're not going to be shadowed. And a guy like DJ Moore having single coverage, we know that he can get open. I'm 5 spots higher on consensus with DJ Moore. This is my first kind of like, whoa, hey now. But I really believe in him in Chicago. I think this is a good team that's going to win a lot more games than we're expecting. I think this is a team that's actually going to compete. And with that, I have to bump some of these parts up. DJ Moore is a high-end wide receiver, too, for me this season. And I just really like what I see from him in Chicago. T. Higgins, again, for all the reasons that you said. Mike Evans, same thing. There's nothing else I can say. Mike Evans is Mike Evans. Pencil him in for 1,000 yards until he doesn't.
Yeah, and I am with you on DJ Moore to an extent. I've been beating that drum for the last several years, hoping that the dude would take the step, to get into the top 8, top 7 wide receivers, and he hasn't. But he's been totally cromulent. He's been fine. Last season didn't help with just the absolute turmoil of Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron. That did not help, but he ran the most raw routes last season of any wide receiver. He was always on the field. He reminds me of, he's almost like fancy Terry McLaurin in a way, where the dude produces. He doesn't get a lot of fanfare for it. But he's not a super duper star. He's just a good wide receiver in a good offense that just produces. That's fine. And there's obviously value in that where you put him at, up in the wide receiver, 14. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with DJ Moore. I think I don't think I have him too far down when I look at it. Not too far down. Let's want to do our 16 through 20 because we're creeping up on an hour here and we haven't even gotten.
Yeah, we should probably get going with this, man.
All right,
speed it up a little. Let's do 16 through 20.
Devontae Adams, Jackson Smith and Jigba, DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin. How pathetic that I just mentioned him, and they're back to back. And Marvin Harrison Jr. Devontae Adams landed in the best spot for outside of Chris Godwin for any. Well, I guess not. Don't count Chris Godwin. As far as a guy going to a new team, landed in the best spot. He landed next to Puka Nacua, where he gets to get schemed open as if his footwork couldn't do it by himself. He gets to get schemed open by Sean McVay. How lucky are we? That's going to extend his career. I mean, maybe by 1 or 2 years, but the window is still open in Los Angeles. We thought that there's a possibility of a new quarterback in Los Angeles. They brought back Matthew Stafford for another go. Whether it's going to be 1 year or 2 years, we'll see. But Devontae Adams has not, fallen off anywhere close to what we thought he would. I mean, we're looking at a guy pulling it up right now. He's entering his 12th season right now.
Yep.
He's going to be 33 years old, but still had his best yard, 2 yards per route run in every season since 2018. 2023, I'm just going to count it and round up because it was 1.97. in Vegas in 2023. So we're just going to go ahead and count that. But nothing has really fallen off. Like his targets per game since 2018 had always been at 10. He took a slight dip on 2 teams down to 9.6, but I'm not holding that against him. The ADOT shortened a little bit. He ran in the slot a bit more than he has since like his than ever, really. If he's going to be in the slot a little bit more, he's not going to see a jam like he had in Green Bay. Great.
Yep.
That's fine. That's going to just take some tread, reduce the tread coming off the tires. So I'm very happy with Davante Adams, knowing how offense that is going to be very condensed. I would not be shocked to see him put up 150 targets, 100 catches. I mean, I think both Puka Nacua and Davante Adams could both get 100 catches in that offense if this offense is going to throw 580 times, because we know everybody else kind of just stays even keel, the Higbees, the Tutu Atwells, the Whittingtons, whoever. So very happy with that condensed duo there with Puka Nacua, Davante Adams. GSN we talked about, DJ Moore we talked about. Terry McLaurin gets a new quarterback. Jaden Daniels clearly had a nice, strong connection with him. I mean, I'm not really concerned about Deebo Samuel taking any targets away from him. I think those are going to be more schemed looks for him. And frankly, the Commanders needed a second target very badly. I don't know if Deebo is it, but they're going to damn well square peg round hole that thing and try to make it work. But I still do like Terry McLaurin for like a lot of the touchdown upside we talk about. And then the sending offense, that's only going to help. And then Marvin Harrison, we drafted him obviously way too high last season and we're clearly disappointed. But now the price is a little bit better this year, and I think we should all be very much in on what we thought was the consensus. A lot of us thought the consensus number 1 wide receiver last year in rookie drafts and stuff like that. So even though the Cardinals offense is a bit underachieving, I still think that he can be in lockstep if he hits his ceiling potential with Trey McBride in that offense. I don't know if I see that as a 1 and a 2, probably more of a 1A and 1B if Harrison can take that step up with McBride. So I still do like him, but I think maybe we temper the expectations a little bit, but Harrison is still supreme. And they used him really weird last year. They used him at like really high, like his ADOT was like 15, which if you know anything about like wide receivers, you want typically an average ADOT for like a boundary wide receiver, you're talking between like 10.5 to like 12 at like the high range. 15 is like you're getting into MVS, almost Deshaun Jackson type, where it is very hard to earn targets at that rate. You have to be Jamar Chase. You have to be incredibly efficient to be able to earn targets and convert on those longer receptions. So hopefully the ADOT shortens down quite a bit. I know it's a Drew Petzing offense. Hopefully he saw that and kind of maybe adjusts a little bit. But I still do like Marvin Harrison.
Well, we're both higher on him than consensus, which I think is interesting. And we're going to get to here. I'm just going to give you my next 5. Okay. Garrett Wilson at 16. We've got Davante Adams at 17. Scary Terry at 18. Marvin Harrison at 19. And then I've got Zay Flowers at 20, which is that's what I wrestled with. It comes down to, I think Mark Andrews is kind of aging out. We saw it last season. He wasn't nearly as efficient. They just weren't using him as much. I think Zay Flowers sees a little bit of bump in volume this year, but I'm still not excited about this passing offense. I mean, their first wide receiver being at wide receiver 20 here, with Lamar Jackson at quarterback. They just don't throw the ball enough to have anybody higher really than like 16, 17, 18. I'm with you on Davante Adams. I think that this was the best place he could have landed. I love everything about his situation in Los Angeles. And same with McLaurin. And getting him that help in Deebo Samuel, I'm not big on Samuel in fantasy, but I think it does help Terry McLaurin a ton.
Yeah. And to the Zay Flowers point, like, no, there's no dude that was like more automatic from the 20-yard line to the other 20-yard line than Zay Flowers.
Yep.
In terms of like special, like it was almost like specialized usage, like for Zay Flowers, because he doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. He only scored 4 last season, but he was just a monster, like in the middle of the field. Like he's just got to get some touchdown luck there. But I still think, like, for what he is, I just don't know if he has the ceiling to even get into like the Ladd McConkey range. And you would think he would in this offense, but I think they just have too many pieces. We know the Ravens use so much personnel. They use a fullback. They use plenty of tight ends to where, Zay Flowers is not really coming off the field that much, but it's enough to where that's going to cap your overall upside when the fact that they trot out Patrick Ricard and Charlie Kolar more often than not.
Right. I wanted to like Zay Flowers so much more because I loved him coming out of Boston College. I thought he was going to be that guy who was going to be what we all thought Rashad Bateman was going to be. And he has been exactly what Rashad Bateman was. Maybe just a little bit better. All right, Kevin, let's get your next 5 here. Let's get 21 through 26.
All right, let's go. Tyreek Hill. I know that's some sticker shock, certainly, but maybe not to you because I haven't seen him on your board yet.
Yeah, not to me.
Devonta Smith, Chris Godwin, Zay Flowers, and I can't quit you forever, Jalen Waddle. A couple of Miami guys. Yeah, so Tyreek Hill, we are one Antonio Brown incident away from Tyreek Hill never playing football again. Like, I don't know if people realize how close he is to like just coming off the map. I believe I just put 2 eyes in the corner. I just saw that. But yeah, so Tyreek Hill, wrist injury last season, took a lot. He was basically a decoy last season that caused the Dolphins to have to change up their entire offense to like Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane passes in the middle and short. And the offenses did not work as intended. And I think Mike McDaniel got some heat for that, in like public perception, just because why couldn't you adjust for that? You know how hard it is to adjust your entire offense on the fly in the middle of an NFL season. Like, it's not like you can just go, all right, we're going to install like a new offense in week 5, good luck. Like that, right. That doesn't happen. We put unrealistic expectations on, and he kind of had to do what he had to do. And that was like the one thing he could do is like shift the focus from, because Jalen Waddle was always coming off on injury. He gets mail in the blue tent. He's getting Jehovah's Witnesses coming to the door. But yeah, Tyreek Hill was like just running like, basically running wind sprints for the most part in the second half of the season. Yeah, so I do think that is a very dangerous pick to make with Tyreek Hill. We know the upside that he has when he's healthy, but if we get 5 games of that, we get like some in games where he's hurt or just ineffective. What if Tua gets hurt again? We're rolling out Zach Wilson. You really want the Zach Wilson to Tyreek Hill connection? Don't know about that.
Nobody wants that. Like, I'm with you on Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I haven't. But there's some upside. There's massive downside.
Sure, and that downside for me, like you look at everything, and it's too much for me. It's too much. It's too risky. I don't like it.
Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob.
Devonta Smith. We talk about the wide receiver 2s in their offenses, and that is, Devonta Smith is just the little engine that could, literally, because he's like 4 inches wide. Everybody wanted to rail on him because he was beanpole thin, but yet he still makes it work. Yeah, he's just a professional wide receiver, to take a quote from Andrew Cooper, who just keeps chugging. Him in that offense with AJ Brown, and I guess you could throw Dallas Goedert in there, very condensed. If they up the passing volume just a little bit, I think we really can get back into like putting Devonta Smith in that, that teens range in with like the T Higgins and Mike Evans and JSNs. But other than that, he's going to have his spike weeks. He's going to have his weeks where he's playing involved in the offense. Maybe he goes like 6 for 70 and doesn't score a touchdown. And like, that's fine. Like, There's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, we know a lot of the scoring equity is going to come in the run game, and that's fine. We can take that as long as we're getting some volume and condensed volume. Chris Godwin was on his way to his best season ever, and then injury struck. He had a dislocated ankle, which I am bullish about because we're not talking about a ligament here. We're talking about dislocated ankle. So I think for, by and large, he should be good for week 1. We still have some work to do in getting some news out there, but in this offense, in this ecosystem with Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield, I think he's totally fine as a slot guy back in the slot, which, that was the main thing from this 2023 to 2024 is Liam Cohen put him back in the slot, which is where he's been by far his best in his career. He is a slot guy, deserves to be in there, and that's where he does his best work. Zay Flowers, we talked about. Jalen Waddle. Look, with the downside that Tyreek Hill has, I understand that we probably should be downgrading the offense. And even if we do downgrade the offense, if Tyreek Hill is not there and it's Jalen Waddle leading the charge, that probably puts him into like the JSN range where I think you can make your Sophie's choice of a guy that we know is efficient when he gets targets and that could actually get like the massive target volume we want. So if Jalen Waddle were the one on like any other team, we'd be probably penciling him in for like 150 targets. He doesn't have that capability on this team right now, but if Tyreek Hill were out of the equation, I think that's a realistic possibility. So I think Jalen Waddle, like the thesis changes a little bit for him because, we've always talked about him being like one of the best wide receiver 2s in football next to Tyreek Hill. But if there's no Tyreek Hill, then we change the thesis to guy that can earn a ton of targets, still be efficient on them, and can just be great for fantasy in that way.
You might have swayed me a little bit on Waddle. You'll see where this is how these things are so fluid as we're going through these conversations here. With Chris Godwin, yeah, it was disappointing. I was really bummed to see him get hurt because he was on his way to like an epic once in a career type season, just unbelievable. I think we get that back. Let's go ahead and I'll drop 21 through 26 here for you guys. Here's where I get spicy. We got George Pickens at 21, Cortland Sutton at 22, Rashee Rice at 23. Then I've got our boy Devontae at 25, and then Chris Godwin at 25, then Chris Olave at 26.
Okay. Oh, Godwin, then Olave, you said?
Godwin, then Olave. Okay. Yes. So, I mean, I'm right there with you on Godwin. We're pretty close on where we've got him. I'm obviously a little bit behind on Rashee Rice, as we talked about. But let's talk about George Pickens.
I mean, this is the fun havers point. We're getting to have some fun now because George Pickens is in a real offense now.
In a real offense with CeeDee Lamb, and like we talked about earlier, for the same reason that I had to bump CeeDee Lamb, I have to bump Pickens even higher because they don't have a run game. And now you've added this second facet for Dak Prescott, and we might need to elevate Dak Prescott a little bit from where we've had him too. I think he's going to be a little bit better with more weapons. And like from there, like Cortland Sutton at 22, plain and simple, he's the wide receiver 1 in Denver. This is going to be a much improved offense. They've added parts and pieces around him. I love that they brought in RJ Harvey. I think they might actually have a legitimate run game this season, like in some consistency in it. And that just makes me like Cortland Sutton a lot more. Rashee Rice at 23, Devontae Smith at 24, Godwin at 25 we talked about. But Chris Olave at 26.
Dicey.
It is dicey, but I just don't know what else that offense is going to really do. I mean, it's probably, we're assuming it's going to be Tyler Shuck, I think, for the most part. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the case. But if it is Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shuck, I just don't know who else they're really going to throw to. And it's all right. Olave's going to get volume. And even in that offense, thinking he's going to get a lot of volume, I still can't have him higher than wide receiver 26, Kevin.
Yeah, and I'm not far. He's actually my 27. I have Sutton at 26. I just added him in real quick, but yeah, Olave I think has one of the wider ranges of outcomes. It's going to be solely dependent on the quarterback, and if anybody can get like these guys the ball, outside of like Alvin Kamara that are dump offs or like scheme stuff with like Taysom Hill, like or like Juwan Johnson, I should say. Yeah, I think it's going to be very telling because if Shuck can't get or any of these quarterbacks can't get the ball to like a wide receiver, it's going to be tough sledding. You're going to have to like do a lot of short stuff to get these guys schemed, and defenses are going to know that, and they're going to condense. You're not going to have anything left in the run game. This offense is going to be very milquetoast if that's the case. If the offense can't push the ball downfield even a little bit, and I think that's where Olave kind of shines there, you're going to have problems. So I think we're going to know pretty quickly, no matter who the quarterback is, whether Chris Olave is going to be like even worth a high-end wide receiver 3, because you have him at 26, I have him at 27. That's what we're pegging him to be, is a high-end wide receiver 3. So I think that it's going to be very much dependent on, the quarterback stuff. But can Olave do it? Absolutely. It's just the fact that, it's going to be very tough to parse.
Well, it's such a shame because this is a guy we should be talking about in the top 12. It's just a really just horrible situation for a dude who's ultra talented. All right, so you've got Olave at 27. That's where I slotted Tyreek Hill in, so we don't need to even talk about that here. Let's round out our top 30, Kevin, with your last 3.
Last 3, Jameson Williams, Xavier Worthy, easy for me to type, and Rome Odunze. J-Mo, look, he was the key piece in that Lions offense as far as the Lions have been looking for a wide receiver 2, since the Clinton administration, and finally found one. Although it took a lot of like soul searching and, gambling and whatever his suspensions were at the flavor of the month. But to finally get him on the field. But when he got on the field consistently, he was just a force as like the deep threat, as the guy who could take the top off the offense. We know obviously the Lions kind of live and die by the run and then throw in short stuff to Amon-Ra St. Brown, but like Williams gives them what they don't have. And I think he could do a lot more in the offense. I think we saw a little bit of that last season. And I think there's still a lot of growth, even though Ben Johnson's not there. I still think that there's a lot more room to maneuver for Jameson Williams to possibly get into like the Terry McLaurin, like the teens, like the low 20s, as far as like being a consistent wide receiver 2. I mean, that's basically what he was last year. It's a low end wide receiver 2. And the fact that, he's not on your board, at least that we see right now, but the fact that public, the consensus has him at, as a low end wide receiver 3, I think that's shows he's a clear value. Xavier Worthy, I think if Rashee Rice plays the full season, which it looks like he's going to, obviously Travis Kelce is back. I think Worthy I think he should be schemed more in that offense. We saw a little bit. We saw the first game, he had 2 touchdowns. And it seemed like they almost forgot about him at times where, if you're Andy Reid, you can't forget about a guy like that. You can't run the offense solely on Rice and Kelce, even though, trust me, we want them to for fantasy. But I think Worthy is efficient enough that he can make the most out of his opportunities. And then eventually, like when Travis Kelce retires, be much more of the focal point in that offense, especially in the middle of the field. Or like even on the boundary if Rice wants to just stay in the slot. So I do like Worthy there. I think he can do a lot more with what he's gotten. And if they scheme him more, I'm very interested. Rome Odunze ran the 6 most raw routes last season. No Keenan Allen. We talked about this offense in Chicago taking a step up, and Rome Odunze is going to be a huge part of that. We know they drafted Luther Burden as well as like the 3rd wide receiver. You're probably going to see a lot more Olamide Zaccheaus, at least in the beginning of the season, as gross as that is. I mean, who knows? But I mean, they signed him as well in free agency. I don't think he's going to be a complete zero, but Roman Dunze, I think, is going to be a massive part of this offense. The Caleb to Dunze connection didn't really hit last season. So, I think we're going to start seeing a renewed focus on that connection this season. I'm hitting at wide receiver 30.
That connection got better after week 12, where we saw a consistent amount of targets for Odunze from Caleb Williams. Yeah. So I'm not worried about it. I've got him, outside of this, just barely at wide receiver 31. But at 28, I do have Jameson Williams. I'm right there with you on this.
Okay.
We've got a question in the chat here. Jamie Prog wants to know if we're worried about Isaac Tesla. I'm not. I don't think he's going to cut into Jameson Williams' production at all whatsoever.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's what we have to worry about. I don't think we're going to be worrying about target volume with him. I don't think that's in the cards. But I think, at least as far as like the Tim Patrick role, I think that's very much in play for him. I mean, didn't they trade up for him too?
They did. They moved up to get him.
Yeah. So that follow the intent of a team that wants to get a certain piece into the room. And that's a big target that, can basically be, a red zone. They're a team that that was able to make a kind of luxury pick and pick out the guy they wanted for that. So I think certainly for Dynasty, we should keep our eyes fixed on Tesla, because I think there's a lot of variance with the role that he could have. And it's potentially, who knows, if you have a guy like that and he breaks out, you're going to tailor your offense to a guy like that. You're going to add him into your offense, maybe play out more 3 wide receivers. That's always in the cards. So,
unless it's Sean Payton and you want him to use Marvin Mims more, of course. So now number 29, I've got Jordan Addison here. And then at number 30, I've got Travis Hunter.
Okay.
Mr. Travis Hunter. I think it's pretty self-explanatory why I've got Jordan Addison here at 29. He's such a good complement to Justin Jefferson. And I see him having a similar season to last season. I think he stays involved in this offense. Mid-range wide receiver 3, I don't think is a bad place for him. Then with Travis Hunter, if they're going to run him out of the slot in this offense, he's not going to have to be really competing with Brian Thomas Jr. for targets. There are 2 ranges of outcomes for Travis Hunter. There's what you and I talked about earlier, where it's 40 to 50 targets. They kind of ease him into the offense this season, get him used to things. But I also think that because this is Jacksonville, because Trevor Lawrence is basically playing for his legacy right now, and to not be looked at as a massive bust as the first overall pick, I wouldn't be surprised to see Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. each have 150 targets. Wouldn't surprise me in the least. And that's kind of where I'm at here with the wide receiver 30. It's the same reason why I had Brian Thomas Jr. up where I had him. It's Trevor Lawrence adjacent, basically, where I feel like this has to happen if Trevor Lawrence is going to move out of this season, and people are going to say, okay, moving forward in Jacksonville, this is the guy.
Yeah, with Travis Hunter, like, I've tried to adjust some of my process the last few seasons because, I get very, the ageism in me. Trust me, if this were like 2022, Travis Hunter would probably be like wide receiver 9. But, I think we have to weigh the fact that even for the number 2 overall pick, an athletic freak, it's still going to be an adjustment for him at the NFL level. The fact that he'll probably play some cornerback snaps, I don't think he can do that at the NFL level. Like, I don't think, at least in the outset. So I do think like 40 to 50% of the routes is well in play for him at the beginning of the season. And if we're ranking him, like if we're ranking now, like this is like, we're trying to snapshot like how we think the season is going to end. There's going to be so much, variance between all this. Obviously, this is not what's going to happen. We're not Johnny Fortune Teller by any means. But there's still, guys are going to be involved over Travis Hunter in the very beginning of the season. Is he going to have a massive role in the middle to late of the season? I would probably bet on that as the realistic outcome. But in the beginning of the season, usually rookies get ramped up. Like Justin Jefferson didn't get on the field till like week 5. And he was, remember the training camp reports, the Olabisi Johnson playing over Justin Jefferson. Like that was very famous. Jamar Chase couldn't see he's looking for the stripes on the ball. Like we always get that, even for the best wide receivers, like, and this is not even guys that have to play another position on the field. So there's going to be an adjustment. And trust me, I would love to put Travis Hunter in my wide receiver 30. If I was going to do a second half of the season PPR rankings, Travis Hunter would be much higher. He would probably be in the teens. He would probably be like 18, 19, 20. Like no problem. But, if you're taking a full view of the season, you have to weigh in the beginning part of the season as there's going to be an adjustment. Travis Hunter is going to get his bearings. He's also going to be playing some corner on top of the 40 to 50% of the routes. Now, maybe he just says, fuck all of us and plays 80% of the routes and is just an absolute demon and supplants Brian Thomas. That's in the range of outcomes too. But I think we have to be a little more realistic with like what we've seen from rookies lately. And I think we're spoiled a bit by even with the Jamar Chases and Justin Jeffersons and the guys we want to anoint as like the next star. So that's kind of my viewpoint on that.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. If I was going to anoint him as star, I'd have him at like wide receiver 10, I think. Wide receiver 30 just feels like kind of right in that middle. I'm willing to take him as like a mid-range wide receiver 3 because honestly, that's like a flex slot, right? How many of us are in 3 wide receiver leagues? So, but enough about Travis Hunter. We've gotten through the first 30. It's time to get to the back half of this where it gets really weird. But this has been much weirder than the first half of running back. So I'm here for it. Kevin, let's get your 31 through 35.
All right. 31. They're going to be guys you've talked about. George Pickens, Travis Hunter, Jordan Addison. I wrestled with this one because we're starting to get at like the line of where I really feel comfortable with like 3 wide receiver. I have to figure out how to spell his goddamn name. It's Tet McMillan. That's like the one I have to like figure out how to spell because I know I'm going to be spelling that a lot. And Khalil Shakir. We talked about Pickens, Hunter. Didn't talk about Addison that much. I mean, Addison is like he's out a little bit outside of like the Waddle, Higgins, Devonta Smith range, but still a really good wide receiver too. I mean, the dude won the Blitnikoff Award. That should tell you everything you need to know about Jordan Addison. But the fact that we have to worry about JJ McCarthy, how is he going to look at the outset? I think he's going to. I don't think he's gonna. It's not as much of a worry for Justin Jefferson, but it's more of a worry for guys like Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson being able to support multiple pass catchers because that's, any quarterback, even like Zach Wilson supported Garrett Wilson, in his time with the Jets. But it's how, if you're able to support the wide receiver 2s and the third target in the offense, is going to be the real like litmus test for a guy like JJ McCarthy. So I would love to rank Addison a little bit higher, but I still think we have those questions. And I think we'll get them pretty early in terms of, and I trust Kevin O'Connell implicitly. Like I trust him with my life, along with Sean McVay. So, I would run through brick walls for Kevin O'Connell, if he told me to. So I'm down. I'm down with Jordan Addison. Ted McMillan, I did not like the landing spot in Carolina that much because I still don't like quite believe in the Panthers passing game, but I've been sold a little bit into the fact that we're probably looking at like Drake London rookie season type potential where like 110 targets, 67 catches, 900 yards, and like a half dozen touchdowns. That probably gets you into the 30s as far as like a low end wide receiver 3. And we know if the Panthers offense, if Bryce Young looks like he did at the end of last season, there's probably more room to maneuver in moving him up to. And then the first Bills receiver, Khalil Shakir. He's going to lead the team in targets. I will bet almost everything I have on that fact, unless he gets hurt. And then that bet is null and void. You cannot come after me on Blue Sky at ktompkins.bsky.social. You cannot do that under any circumstances. But I still think Shakir, his specialized role in that offense is like a short A-dot yak monster in the mold of a Debo that maybe doesn't have the downfield stuff yet. I think there's something worth that where there's going to be massive touchdown equity in Buffalo. And everybody else in Buffalo is like a literal wash. Keon Coleman, Elijah Moore now, Josh Palmer, Dalton Kincaid, like the Rube Goldberg machine that is Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, like miss me with all of those guys that are going to end up getting 55 targets and hit me with Khalil Shakir getting 120 targets in this offense that'll probably catch close to 100 of them because they're all going to be close to the line of scrimmage, and then letting him flirt with 1,000 yards because he's going to just out-muscle and out-maneuver every single linebacker and nickelback on his way.
Yeah, isn't it interesting that we're talking about Buffalo's first wide receiver at 35, and this is a team that I think we all agree is going to compete to win the AFC and go to the Super Bowl again because of Josh Allen and because of what this team is.
They're my Super Bowl pick.
Yeah, but much like Kansas City, the way that this offense operates, you're not going to get one receiver who's going to blow you out of the water and be super fantasy relevant. Spoiler alert, I have Khalil Shakir as my first Bills receiver, but I have him considerably farther down my rankings. That's how little I believe in the passing options in this offense and just what they're going to do in general. I'll go ahead and give you 31 through 35 here of mine. I've got Romo Dunze at 31. DK Metcalf at 32, which I didn't think I was going to be this much higher than you on him. Brandon Ayuk at 33. Then I've got Xavier Worthy at 34 and Jalen Waddle at 35. With DK Metcalf, I look at what that offense is, and a lot of people actually have him higher. I'm 6 below consensus on DK Metcalf right now, which is crazy. What's Pittsburgh doing, man? And that's my question. We don't know who the hell their quarterback's going to be. So the first wide receiver of theirs we're talking about is DK Metcalf. He's their best wide receiver. He's going to be their volume wide receiver unless they get Romeo Doubs. If they get Romeo Doubs, Metcalf's probably out of my top 40, quite honestly, because I don't know how much is left. And in that offense, maybe they get Aaron Rodgers. And then with Brandon Ayuk at 33, again, this is just who else are they going to throw to in this offense? They've got Juwan Jennings, they've got Ricky Pearsall, they've got George Kittle, but then they love Brandon Ayuk and they just extended him. So if he's healthy, I think that he's got to be a low-end wide receiver 3. Xavier Worthy, I'm worried about the legal stuff, Kevin. I don't know that he's going to see the field. I mean, what happened with him was pretty egregious. So I'm concerned about that. So I'm tempering expectations of him playing much or at all. And then with Waddle, I just worry about this offense, man. I mean, like we talked about with him earlier, where what if Tua doesn't play through the season? Okay, so then we get Zach Wilson and maybe Quinn Ewers, which is not exciting to literally anyone. No. This offense goes from here to way below the screen. And I'm just not willing to draft Waddle up. And I think people should be a little bit more cautious on it. I get why you like him. I get why you've got him in your top 30. I'm just not there with him yet.
Yeah, I get that. And on the Ayuk stuff, like, I don't know. I'm having a hard time kind of separating a lot of these San Francisco wide receivers and pass catchers because, you know, as we've seen, there's not enough ball for like all these guys to hit each week. Like we've seen it where it's been like CMC hits, Ayuk hits, and Kittle goes like 2 for 20. Kittle goes 8 for 148. Ayuk goes, 7 for 110. CMC has like 1 catch and like 42 yards rushing. Like not everybody can hit. There's not enough football. So that's where I have some worry in someone's going to get left out of the offense. And that's going to rotate. That's going to be like one big roulette wheel where whoever it lands on is like, sorry, you get the short end of the straw this week. You get to watch George Kittle score 2 touchdowns. Good luck, buddy. And then on top of that, Brandon Ayuk is still, coming off his ACL as well. So we'll see how the ramp up goes with that. And San Francisco might just be a middle of the road team. Like, I don't think I think we're out of that window. We talked about it yesterday where I liken them to like the Philadelphia Phillies of holding on for their stars too long and kind of aging them out on the team with Kittle. I mean, Kittle's still great, but CMC is on the downturn. Certainly Trent Williams is probably on his literal last leg.
Yes,
so
literal.
So I think it's tough to separate a lot of those guys because we want to try to prop up the Juwan Jennings and the Ricky Pearsalls and those that ilk. But when you have like those three wide receivers plus Ayuk, plus Kittle, plus CMC, Brock Purdy, has to distribute the ball. Like, you can't get the ball to everybody.
No, you can't. I think Ayuk sees more volume than you're thinking, obviously, with all of this.
I mean, he's been massively efficient with the volume that he gets.
Yep.
But he's going to have to maintain that efficiency to, I think, even reach this. And I think you're going to be very shocked at where I have him.
I probably will be. Well, let's start working towards it. Give me 36 through 40.
All right. Jerry Jeudy. And I honestly think I probably have him too high. Stephon Diggs. A lot of olds here. Calvin Ridley. The aforementioned Juwan Jennings. And Jacoby Myers. Jeudy is going to see volume, but the quarterback issues loom. But I was glad to see him get a massive amount of work last season in that stretch. We know what he can do. It's just the fact that maybe he just needs like the perfect system. Like, he's never really been in a real great system for like pass volume, and he got it, and we saw what he can do. So I think we gotta get there for Jerry Jeudy, and that's clearly not right now. We don't know who the quarterback is. Could be a 5th round guy for all we know. Starting quarterback for the Browns this season.
Stop it.
Look, who know? Look,
I mean, certainly, really, who knows?
An unintended bump for Travis Hunter, by the way. Look what he did with a 5th round quarterback. Like, you got to bump him up a couple spots.
That's why I've got him at 30, Kevin. Come on, man.
Yeah. Look, the last horse finally crossed the finish line. I mean, look, this is like the volume tier, pretty much. We're talking about Jeudy needs it. Stephon Diggs is going to get it from Drake May. He is the volume play where we're going to see what he has left at age, I think, 32. As pretty much the only show in town with the Patriots. I mean, sure, Hunter Henry counts. Kendrick Bourne maybe counts. Demario Douglas, take it or leave it, whatever. Calvin Ridley, I've been growing a little bit more on Calvin Ridley because what if Cam Ward is a little bit better? And I think that with the state of the Titans offense right now, Cam Ward is not that much of a rusher of the football. Like, he's not a running quarterback. I know we want to try to look at him and be like, oh, that dude's going to run for like 5. But no, that's not who he is. He is like literally Geno Smith, like at best case, Ben Roethlisberger, as far as like his archetype of quarterback. And that could probably be really good for at least one target in that offense. And Calvin Ridley is your target earning, pass catcher du jour, because it's probably not going to be 9,000-year-old real estate entrepreneur Tyler Lockett. And it's probably not going to be Chigakonkwo, who looked a lot better last season at the end of it. So I think they got to put a little feather in his cap. Juwan Jennings, I think he mixes in. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for in terms of efficiency. He was just a find last season. When you're talking about guy, he had that awesome game with 3 touchdowns and he got hurt, and then he was like pretty solid. But yeah, like he was over 2 yards per route run. I think there's more untapped potential for a guy like Juwan Jennings, who when you look at his career arc, he was like on the Trent Sherfield path to playing 10 years and catching 10 footballs. And now he's like, a solid contributor that I think can be certainly more. Usually when you see that kind of efficiency, teams notice that. Like that's like the Chigakonkwo, Logan Thomas. Yeah, they're all tight ends, but that still applies when you see a guy that is so massively efficient on a lower number of routes. You want to get that guy more routes to see if he can keep up the efficiency with more volume. And then Jacoby Myers, the definition of volume. Does Jack Besh hurt him a little bit? Maybe.
Probably.
But I still think that Jacoby Myers is going to be the second target on that team. I just don't think he has like 130 target upside. I think he probably is closer to like 110, 115, but I still think that he can do a lot of damage with Geno Smith and having Brock Bowers and Besh and now Ashton Genty in that offense. That offense starting, it's looking like a real boy, Nate.
Yeah, it really is starting to look like a real boy, which is exciting. Not as much as someone who has lived their whole life in Denver. I don't know. A lot of Raider hater flags around this place. I've got Judy at 36, and I agree with you. If there was a better quarterback situation, I'd be much more bullish on Judy.
Yeah.
We know the talent he has, and I think you hit the nail on the head. He just hasn't been in the right situation. And I completely agree with you there. What I worry about with Stephon Diggs, I've got him a little bit lower in my rankings, is I don't think he's going to be ready week 1. I don't think he's going to be ready week 2 or week 3 or week 4. I think we see him somewhere around week 6 to 8. I'm willing to take him. List? Probably.
Yeah.
He's 31, going to be 32 when the season starts. Those are concerns for a guy with that major knee injury. Is the rehab going to go well? And when he gets back on the field, is he going to have that pop? Is he going to have that explosiveness? He was already losing it before the injury. So, but I can't argue with where you have him, because if he's really good this season, and what else do they have in New England, as you said, Kevin? Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Kendrick Bourne. He's not exciting. This kind of goes with Calvin Ridley, too, where I'm not a huge fan of him as a player. The talent's there. Maybe it's just never been realized. Now he's getting up there in age. But with Cam Ward, he's a perfect target monster. Who else is he competing with? There's just really nobody. I personally don't have him. Where I've got him at 39 is where I've got Calvin Ridley. So I'm kind of right there with you. My 37 is Deebo Samuel. I think he's going to be more effective in this Washington offense. I think they're going to find some fun gadget stuff for him to do. And I'm okay with drafting him as someone that I roll out as a flex most weeks. Jaden Daniels, Deebo Samuel, and Terry McLaurin make this offense so much more explosive if Deebo stays healthy. And I think I have him inside my top 36 if I thought for sure that this is a dude who's going to stay healthy and stay on the field all season. 38, I've got Emeka Egbuka. I'm way high on him in that offense. 20 spots ahead of consensus on him. And then to round it out at 40, I've got Ricky Pearsall instead of Juwan Jennings as my other 49ers receiver. I love Juwan Jennings, Kevin, and I like where you have him. I have him not far behind. But this is kind of a situation for me where I don't know how this is going to shake out with this wide receiver 2. I'm pretty confident in Brandon Ayuk being that guy as wide receiver 1. Between Pearsall and Jennings, I just don't know. Pearsall missed the first 4 games with that gunshot wound last season. He didn't get a full rookie year. I think he takes a step forward. He might be the best route runner on this team. And it might not even be close. And if he can actually take some steps forward, I think he takes a leap to maybe being a back-end wide receiver 3. Maybe I have him too low. But we got to see kind of what happens here.
Yeah, and that's fair too, and that kind of leans into some of the Baltimore stuff actually, because we know the San Francisco, like the Ravens, the 49ers also play a fullback and a lot of other personnel. So if Pearsall is a pure slot guy, that really limits how much he's going to get on the field. To where it's probably going to be in a 2 wide receiver set, and as long as Ayuk is healthy, Ayuk and Jennings. To where you could probably float Pearsall, and he's not going to be a pure slot player, but that's still going to limit his upside and just getting on the field. Now they could play 11. I mean, they love to use Kyle Juszczyk as a situational kind of chess piece. So that's kind of where I'm leaning with that. That's why I have him lower. And Deebo, as long as the commander, as long as Cliff Kingsbury doesn't run Deebo up the middle 4 or 5 times a game, like Kyle Shanahan loved to do, I think Deebo will be fine. I think that's I think that's a lot of what, having to carry some of the rushing work too that, we saw him start to do in 2021 and 22. That's really taken a lot of tread off his tires. And you take a 200-pound guy and that's not a running back, and you put him in the middle of defensive linemen and offensive linemen, and hey, you got to get through all these guys. That's going to take a toll on you. That's much more of a toll than running 40 routes and maybe getting hit 5 or 6 of them by a 200 or 190-pound nickelback. Like, that's a massive difference.
It is. And let's just hope Kingsbury doesn't do that. As much as I dislike Cliff Kingsbury, I trust him to not ruin Deebo Samuel the way Kyle Shanahan just ran him up the middle. But, I mean, who knows? All right, Kevin, let's get your 41 through 45.
All right, I have Deebo here. And then Josh Downs, who I think is the best wide receiver in Indianapolis over Michael Pittman. He is also in this list, by the way, in 44th, Michael Pittman Jr. And then Ricky Pearsall. Like, I have these guys pretty much bunched up in San Francisco just because, Pearsall clearly has upside. It's just, I don't know if he sees the field as much as we want him to. Indy, with both guys there, I worry a bit about, obviously, the quarterback situation. Tyler Warren is another wrench into that. Shane Steichen has come out to say that he's going to play a lot of snaps, a lot of routes, completely different from what they've done with like the Kylan Gransons and Mo Alley Coxes of the world, basically using that as like a 4-man rotation. I'll believe that when I see it, but I think for that, we have to bump down a lot of these guys. But I do think Downs is the best wide receiver in terms of target earning ability and yak ability to be fantasy relevant over Pittman, who has basically been a strict target earning guy. And that's what he's like based his that and touchdowns, which is not, year to year, very sticky. Cooper Kupp, we talked about him earlier, but he could be on the downswing here. He gets the name value bump here at 43. We'll see what he's got left in the tank. But with Sam Darnold, he gets a new offense now with a lot more surroundings. He doesn't have to be the top guy. Maybe he ends up with 100 targets, but I would actually take the under on him earning 100 targets. So he's going to have to be efficient. He can have flashes of that, but I'm just not sure of like the week-to-week viability of putting him in my lineup.
Well, I mean, we talked about it already with Cooper Kupp, and I completely agree. I think, quite honestly, I think you probably have him ranked near his ceiling in this offense this season. Not that he can't be a deterrent for defenses and help out Jackson Smith and Jigba, but from a fantasy perspective, I just don't see him doing a whole ton. This is right about where he should be. I'm a little bit lower on him than you. But at 41, though, I've got Ted McMillan. I'm finally going to bring him up. I don't like the situation. I think he's clearly very talented. I need to see Carolina and Bryce Young specifically do something consistently. We just haven't seen it. So I'm real cautious in drafting him right now. 42, I've got Juwan Jennings. Again, just grouping those receivers right around here because I'm not sure what I feel like is going to happen there. And I'm with you on Josh Downs. I've got him at 43. He's the best receiver on this team. I was a Michael Pittman truther once upon a time. My bad. I take it all back.
Couldn't be me. I've never been a Pittman guy.
Not you.
Couldn't
never.
It was when Green Bay passed. It was when Green Bay passed him and T. Higgins up to draft Jordan Love.
I'm sure Aaron Rodgers. Maybe write him a little note and just remind him about that before he goes to Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
maybe. I've got Khalil Shakir at 44. Then I've got Stephon Diggs at 45. And just to the whole Khalil Shakir thing, I like him. He's one of my favorite receivers just from like a pure player standpoint in the league. I just like him. I like what he does. I like his speed, I like his general attitude. But this offense, man, the passing attack is just like we talked about earlier. It's hard to gauge what's what here. My first Bills receiver is at 44. That tells you how I feel about it. And I still think Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And this is a team that can compete. They probably will be the representative in the Super Bowl. So,
yeah, whole is greater than the sum of their parts in Buffalo, certainly.
Yep. All right, Kevin, let's get 46 through 50.
You're gonna laugh. This is where I have my biggest faller here. Not this person, Darnell Mooney, who had a good season last year. He definitely he looked the part until he had that Thursday night drop against the Buccaneers, and that was kind of like the bloom finally came off the rose a little bit. Yeah. But Mooney was really good for the first 11, 12 weeks of the season. DK Metcalf is my wide receiver 47.
Wow.
You can look, the clear upside for me in terms of I'm gonna have to pull it up here. For DK Metcalf is looking at what Drake London did in his rookie season. And what did Drake London do? Drake London was 72, 866, and 4. They have gutted this wide receiver room to the extent where it's almost unrecognizable. They got rid of George Pickens. And right now, they brought back Robert Woods and are talking him up as a guy that can run a ton of routes on this team. When you are doing that to a literal octogenarian in Robert Woods, who, trust me, I have been on Team Robert Woods longer than I've been a fantasy analyst. So I don't want to hear anybody coming after me. You can ask pretty much anybody in the industry. I've been a staunch Robert Woods guy. But right now, this offense is outside the wide receivers. We're looking at DK Metcalf, Robert Woods, and Calvin Austin as the starting three. And then you've got the most Steelers-ass wide receivers of Ben Skowronek, Scotty Miller, Brandon Johnson, former Bronco, Roman Wilson, who played 10 snaps last season. And then not only that, who's their quarterback? Is it Aaron Rodgers? Is it Mason Rudolph? Is it Will Howard?
Yeah.
When you look at Drake London's rookie season in Atlanta with Arthur Smith and how absolutely bereft that wide receiver group was, and you look at this one of the Steelers, 72, 866, and 4 feels like an absolute pipe dream. And we know how Drake London has been efficient and can weather kind of that lack of passing volume. Can DK Metcalf do that at age 27, 8? I think. I can't remember, but he's
28.
He's not a spring chicken. We're talking about a guy that's going to have to rely solely on, just the limited work he gets. So I have him at wide receiver 47, and I feel this is about right, just because of the entire situation. I can't see late stage Aaron Rodgers, who already looked really bad at the end of the last season, propping DK Metcalf up.
I suppose I put him at 32 on name recognition because you feel like he's got to do something in this offense. Looking at what they've got, it probably all goes to Darnell Washington, knowing Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I cannot put DK Metcalf any higher when I see what a similar wide receiver that is a better wide receiver do that in this offense. DK Metcalf has been fine, but I think the system and having a surrounding, JSN and Tyler Lockett and Geno Smith, and a grown-up head coach in Pete Carroll, I think that's done a lot for him, to where now we're looking at a completely offensive, a run-first head coach in Arthur Smith, stubborn-ass Mike Tomlin, and now this entire thing has been gutted. I don't see any upside in DK Metcalf. He is purely a floor play and one that is going to get drafted based on name value, and I just don't see it. So I am fully, willing to Jon Snow pull my sword out at the incoming barrage of mean-spirited things people are going to say to me about ranking on a fantasy football live stream, but so be it.
I hear you, man, and I'm not going to come at you for that. All right, let's get 48, 49, and 50, Kevin.
Sorry, that was
good.
That was the soapbox I was waiting for. My highest ranked Packers wide receiver, Jaden Reed, Brandon Ayuk, which I might have to bump Brandon Ayuk up a little bit because now, after talking, I think that might be a little egregiously low. And Christian Kirk, who
all right.
I still like Kirk here. I know they drafted 2 wide receivers. I do think Kirk is going to still be the wide receiver 2. Like when you sort out the range of outcomes, more often than not, Kirk is going to probably end up being the wide receiver 2, or at least the second pass catcher in terms of targets behind Nico Collins. But there are scenarios where like Jaden Higgins or Noel, whoever, can take enough off the top where maybe Kirk mixes in and comes down to those guys rather than Kirk staying pretty firmly ahead of those 2. We talked about Jaden Reed. So the Packers, my Packers, who think their offense is solely based on Josh Jacobs and forget the passing game exists. No, I mean, but that's the case, though, especially after the bye. Green Bay was bottom 3 last season in pass rate over expected and second in raw rush rate. So they've seen Jaden Reed has been a pure slot player for them. For some reason, I believe he's taken a career 10 snaps out wide, like in 2 years. I might have that wrong, but I think it was like Justice Mosqueda, Packers writer. I believe he said something close to that. No, Nate, you're going to look it up. I did say no fact checking. I'm going to assume it's right.
He ran 163 routes out wide, 520, 520 out of the slot, though. So that's a massive difference. Not even 1/6 of his routes were from the slot, or his snaps were from the slot. So,
but clearly not many per game. Clearly not many per game. So like that, if he's never going to play out wide and he's always going to come off the field whenever the set condenses to 2 wide receivers, how high can you really put a guy like that? Especially when it feels like at times they don't know how to use him or just forget to use him. Like, as opposed to a guy like Romeo Doubs or even a guy like Matthew Golden, who they just drafted in the first round. So I have some trepidation in a team that's clearly going to score a lot of points, clearly going to be fantasy relevant. I just don't know if that's going to be coming through the passing game. You're going to see a lot of Packers. I'm going to tell you kind of just to no spoilers. Packers are going to be pretty bunched up here in the last little bit of my rankings, at least.
Yep, I've got him pretty bunched up too here. At 46, though, this is not a Packers wide receiver. It's Jacoby Myers, who we've discussed. This is just an interesting offense. This is volume. He doesn't score touchdowns. He didn't score a touchdown his entire rookie season. What makes us think he's all of a sudden? We could go on for days about how I feel about Jacoby Myers. But at 47, I've got Luther Burden. I am 7 slots higher than consensus, and I think I'm still maybe a little bit too low when all said and done at the end of the season. We know what the Chicago offense is going to do. They're going to have to throw the ball a fair amount. I've got Cooper Kupp, who we've already discussed, at 48. And then my first Packers wide receiver, you're going to be disappointed. It's not Jaden Reed. It's Romeo Doubs.
Okay. I was getting ready to type Matthew Golden, but okay.
No, God, no. I'm not crazy. I do watch football occasionally. Then at number 50, I've got Keon Coleman, just a little bit higher than consensus on Doubs and Coleman. No point in talking about the first 3. We've talked about those guys plenty. We've talked about the Chicago offense enough. But Romeo Doubs. The reason I've got Doubs ahead of Reed is because I think that Doubs, as we just talked about, is going to be on the field, have more opportunities should he stay in Green Bay. When they condense those 2 wide receiver sets, we're going to see more Doubs, and we're going to see a Dontavian Wicks. We're really not going to see Jaden Reed. Then with Keon Coleman, there has to be a second wide receiver there. I think it's probably Keon Coleman. He'll probably be second in targets as far as wide receivers go. Kincaid's probably second in targets overall on the team. I just don't think he's going to score a lot. I mean, I can't see him eclipsing probably 80 receptions or maybe 700 yards receiving.
He's Gabe Davis.
Yeah, he's Gabe Davis. He's more fun. He's got a better personality. So yeah, I mean, with these Packers wide receivers, again, like you said, they're all bunched. So should we just roll out our last 10?
Yeah, we could do that. I will just say Romeo Doubs, I just don't think is a good, like, actual skillful wide receiver in the NFL. But for some reason, Green Bay, probably, I think Dobbs has something on Brian Gutekunst to be able to put him out there for 85% of the routes. Like, I think he's a fine, like, average NFL wide receiver, and that makes sense why the Steelers are interested in him to bring him in. I think that should be the telltale sign of where you stand as an NFL wide receiver if the Steelers want you. So yeah, that's like, he's never been really that efficient. Like, last season was his best season, 1.67 yards per out run, but still was below 20% targets per out run the last 2 seasons. I mean, he's been very steady, 5.5 targets per game. Never really eclipsed 70% target share. Like, he's always just kind of mixed in. But I do think if he remains with the Packers, he plays enough routes where he's going to compile. He's a compiler, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't want those are guys I don't want on my fantasy team.
No, I don't either. I'm not drafting Romeo Doubs. I had to rank him somewhere.
Right. Hey, yeah. Sometimes you got to put a guy somewhere.
Exactly. Like Josh Palmer in Buffalo. Sometimes you just got to put a guy somewhere.
All right. 51 through 60, Rashid Shaheed, Luther Burden, the aforementioned Romeo Doubs, Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, whoever he's going by this week.
Either or.
Matthew Golden. And it pains me, by the way, not to have Dontavian Wicks in my top 60. I'm going to have to make that change immediately. Adam Thielen, Keon Coleman, Marvin Mims.
All right.
Yeah, I know. I'm a fraud. Xavier Legette. And one for the fun havers, Jack Bech.
Ooh, I like this. So the thing is, when we get into this tier of players, this subset of rankings, these are dart throw guys. These are guys where you're like, if I really need one, I've got one in the bank. We're not expecting.
If you squint hard enough, you can see it.
These are late round best ball guys for the most part, right? Like Rashid Shaheed. Do we know if he's even going to play?
We don't, but I don't even think it matters. Like, that dude if that dude can recreate MVS last season when he was on the Saints and do it with more efficiency, he'll be a perfect best ball guy. Like, that's perfect. But for like redraft, it's a little bit harder to set him in your lineup and be like, make that a purposeful decision you're making to put him in your lineup as like a flex. But I get it, because the dude could pop off for like 20 points. And the first couple games he did. Like, we all thought that Clint Kubiak, he was setting himself up to be like the new head coach of the Bears, Clint Kubiak, because of the first couple weeks of the Saints, and then everything else happened, and the Saints we did not make fetch happen.
No fetch happened at all. No, I remember. I passionately hate Dennis Allen, so
I mean, so does Kennedy Miller. But yeah, Luther Burden, Romeo Doubs, like Marquise Brown. I think we still have to figure out where he fits in with Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce. But he's been a good receiver in his career, so it wouldn't surprise me if Marquise Brown has like maybe the DeAndre Hopkins role of last year plus. Like, if he found his way on the other outside receiver spot. They don't have Justin Watson anymore. They did gut kind of that wide receiver room a little bit, and they are more skillful in that way versus a bunch of guys that, have like specialized like special teams roles, or guy that's just the sacrificial X. Matthew Golden, I think he's a first round wide receiver, and I think that's worth something that Green Bay like made a purposeful decision to go get him. I do want to see where he fits in, because I still do think without Watson, obviously Romeo Doubs is going to be a starting wide receiver as long as he's with the Packers. I think Dontavian Wicks is probably at least a starting wide receiver on the outside at week 1. But if they deal Dobbs, that gives Golden a runway to get time on the field. Jaden Reed's clearly the slot guy. I think that could be very interesting. And then Thielen, it's all targets. It's all pure target volume in the slot. Like that's worth something too. That's like your Hunter Renfrow, basically, of years past. Who, by the way, Hunter Renfrow, also a Carolina Panther. So that's a little interesting.
Oh boy.
Yeah, he just came back. He had
I saw something about it.
And he had like ulcerative colitis or something like that, and he was out for all of last season. That's why I didn't sign.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, something like that. Keon Coleman was like, we talked about him. Marvin Mims, the first time that he plays over 50% of routes will be the first time since 2023, not 2003. Yep. That would be interesting.
That would be,
since he was 4 years old.
Yeah.
And Legette's a dart throw, and Besh.
Yeah.
You hope he figured, with a wide open depth chart with the Raiders, you hope he can find a starting spot ahead of whatever, the TJ Turners and the Trey Tuckers. Yeah.
I like Jack Besh. I think great story. The kid's overcome a lot, and he was a second-round pick. So I can't believe I don't have him in my top 60, but I don't. I'll roll out mine here real quick. I've got Michael Pittman Jr. at 51. Jalen McMillan at 52, Christian Kirk at 53, Jaden Reed at 54. Then I've got Darnell Mooney at 55, Mr. Rashid Shaheed at 56, Marvin Mims at 57, Rashad Bateman at 58, Quentin Johnston at 59. Then I've got Matthew Golden at 60. We're both way ahead or way higher we're both lower on Matthew Golden in consensus, which I find interesting.
Who was 60?
60 was Matthew Golden.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, like we talked about, these are guys where you're hoping for like 1 or 2 games of production when you absolutely need them if you're taking them in redraft, which you're probably not. These are best ball guys. Marvin Mims, I mean, like you said, 50% of routes run, that would be amazing. Probably won't happen in the Sean Payton offense, but when he has those big games in best ball, you win. And Rashad Bateman, I'm just hoping that maybe he gets a little bit more involved in this offense. Maybe they throw the ball just a little bit more as Derrick Henry's getting older, just to preserve him. Like, just add 20 attempts in the passing game this year. Give 10 to Bateman, give 10 to Zay. Maybe they can get a touchdown apiece with those. I don't know.
Jamie's coming for you, Nate.
Oh, he always comes for me.
I think I have him. I think I have QJ at 70 in my rankings.
So I know he's not a great pass catcher. It's just opportunity's going to be there for now.
He's gonna be on the field a lot more.
Yep, and that's all it is. He's just going to be on the field more than Golden. And with some of these guys, Darnell Mooney, I'm not super excited about, but he's going to be on the field.
Is what it is.
That's it. Yep. Oh, guys,
go ahead. I was going to say, I'm looking at like the guys I have next, like that I obviously 61 through 70. I have Wicks at 63, Dontavian Wicks. I'm probably going to feel like I'm going to bring up a little bit, but obviously there's a trade-off. Ekbuka is 64, McMillan at 65, just because I'm not sure how they're going to manage that. Is there a more disrespected 140 targets than Wan'Dale Robinson at wide receiver 66? Like nobody fucking believes that for like
I've got him at 78. It's not Wan'Dale Robinson.
No,
I don't trust him. I don't trust the combination of Russell Wilson or Jackson Dart. I don't think Jameis Winston sees the field. I think if they yank Wilson, I think we end up with Jackson Dart.
He had a good run.
Did he though?
I mean, he had that one. He had that 30-30 season. I mean, that should get him a 30. That should get him a 30 for 30.
It really should.
The 30-30 season should get him a 30 for 30.
I'm with you on it. Well, guys, I want to thank everyone for tuning in for this absolute madness. We're rolling in right at 2 hours yet again for the second day in a row. And we'll be back tomorrow with more rankings, quarterbacks and tight ends. Tomorrow, Thursday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. But later tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, we have got the schedule release show. Keith Fleming will be joining us officially for that show. So we'll be back here at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Sweet.
As I'm talking, here are our rankings. My top 24, Kevin's top 24. Look for those coming out on social media later this afternoon. We'll throw them up on Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, all the places, so you can roast us for our rankings.
Yep.
Kevin, thanks for hanging out, man. Always appreciated. We'll be back tomorrow. Make sure, guys, check out the show description. We've got some promo codes for you. FastDraft.app with that $50 deposit match. We've also got discounted tickets for the Fantasy Football Expo, so make sure to check those out as well. For Kevin Tompkins, I am Nate Polvogt, guys. Thanks for riding with us today. We'll see you tomorrow.